One of the other ways that I see it too, especially amongst my generation, which is mainly my focus, is how to get people from my generation to understand these concepts and maybe find a way through them, is how debt is utilized in uh, a capitalist society. So
Mm,
can you talk to me about that? What role does debt play in the pacification of people?
sure, sure. Well, again, we could if we didn't fill up all of our time together listing our insecurities, right? We could probably fill up a lot of time listing our debts. You know, we
Yeah.
if we're all very, very insecure, we're all also all very, very in debt, right? Up to our necks in it. And again, to go back to a previous point in our conversation, the generational difference is huge, right? Because of student debt now, educational debt, um, your generation is facing a yet worse problem than mine, right? Okay, so we could list our debts, right? We're all up to our necks in it, right? Every single one of us, yeah. And we're also up to our necks in debt because of, again, go back to that point about the ideology of self advancement, that we have to take on debts to get ahead, right? That's basically the lesson for students going into higher education, right? You need a degree to get a good job. You need a good job to get good money. To get the degree, you have to go into debt, right? There's very few people that can avoid that. Very few people that can come out of university without being up to their necks in in debt, right? Um, okay, so we've got those examples. We've got examples of the extent of credit card debt, right? We also know that the mortgage, which we're told we all should aspire to, is just one massive debt that can last for decades, right? And for increasing numbers of people, doesn't get paid off until after they die, right? A debt for life until a debt until death. Yeah. Um, why do so many people have to take on a mortgage? Well, partly because the housing system is a mess, right? And there isn't decent, affordable housing for people. That the rental market is dominated by private interests, yeah, and therefore people go, well, if I'm going to pay that much in rent, I may as well try and get a mortgage. Whereas a lot of people wouldn't take out a mortgage if they had affordable rents. Yeah. So all of these things are very, very um, closely connected. Okay. So this raises a number of interesting questions. Well, let's think about them. I mean, the first is, if you're in debt, then you're likely to just have to carry on working, right? In other words, remain a member of the working class and therefore remain a member of that class of people that produces a profit for capital. Yeah. Once people clear off their debts, then not working becomes an easier possibility, right? Well, the fact that we're all up to our necks in debt suggests that, that we're stuck with it, right? That it's and that suggests that debt is now uh, more integral to the capitalist system than it once was, right? Especially personal debt. That it's somehow, here we go, pacifying us, right? That of instead of not working, instead of revolting, or instead of just trying to live a better life, a life driven more by satisfying needs and pleasures, we're stuck. Yeah. But there's also something else that's interesting, that is about pacifying, about the role of debt as pacification, which is that, in the last 20, 30 years, there's been the development of an idea that the state can use the shorthand is MORS, which is money as a weapons system, right? And this is coming from within the military side of the state, right? That money, that the military can and should use money as a weapons system. The idea itself is quite telling, right? Money, we're constantly told, is just a very, very easy way for commerce to take place, for exchange to take place, right? That's what we're told by capital about why money exists. Yeah, it just makes exchange easier. Okay, but actually, what we're now told is that money is a weapon. Well, that sounds like a very different sort of story. And what they mean when they say money is a weapon system is not that they're going to give people some money in order not to revolt, for example. What they mean is they want people to get into debt, and they want people to get into debt so that they become wage laborers. Yeah. Again, this is about the process of pacification, right? You find this idea of money as a weapon system within counterinsurgency literature, for example. Yeah. But it's also about the process of pacification that is not about dropping bombs. It's about dropping debts on people. Right? It's making people understand that if they want to live in this world, they need to go out and work for a wage.
Absolutely. I think there is a restricted of like your agency we talk about here, and you mentioned counterinsurgency. It's like when, even if you disagree with the system, because you're part of the system and you're kind of looped in that wage structure, you have to keep working, and you're almost like endeavor servitude where you have to keep doing it, and especially for this generation who doesn't see a way out through housing, through it seems like a very long process. It's like the way debt kind of affects our freedom is very interesting to talk about here.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you very naturally use the word servitude, right? And what does the debt industry talk about? It talks about servicing the debt, right? We service the debt, right? We have to, yeah, like it is designed to put us in servitude. What are we in servitude to? Well, we're kind of, it feels like we're in servitude to our own need to satisfy our needs. And the only way we can satisfy our needs, or our human needs, right? A human need for whatever, education, right? A human need for housing, right? These are very fundamental needs, right? But the only way we're allowed to do that is to get into an enormous amount of debt, right? Which puts us at the service of the debt. But what does that really mean? It means it puts us at the service of the student loan company or the bank or the financial institutions, right? Someone somewhere, or at least some organizations somewhere, is making a lot of money out of our debt, right? Because ultimately what capitalism really wants is to turn money into money into more money. Yeah. And the financial side of the capitalist system is refined in order to do that, right? How do we take money and turn it into more money? Of course, the world can't exist with just turning money into money, so there has to be production, right? Because we have to eat and drink and wear clothes and make bricks and everything else that we need, right? So there has to be some production somewhere, which is what industrial capitalism does. But financial capitalism goes, nah, we don't want to bother with producing anything, right? What we want to do is to take some money and turn it into more money. So what it does is it says, okay, well, we'll pay your student fees, and over the course of the next 40 years, you're going to give us a shitload more money than we gave the university for you, right? Likewise, my mortgage, right? We'll give you this loan. We'll put you in debt, yeah. And in the process of paying off the mortgage, I don't want to even begin to think of how much money I would have given the building society by the time I end up finished paying for it, right? The figures are scary, right? But that's how financial capitalism functions now.
Yeah, it is indeed a vicious cycle of insecurity, then debt to kind of address that insecurity, which gives you a little bit of security, but then also insecurity about losing that security.
Exactly. It doesn't give you security, right? That's exactly what it doesn't do, right?
Yeah,
Because the truth is, if you talk to students, right, they're not going, well, I know I'm in a lot of debt, but I've got the security of knowing that I'm going to get a good graduate job, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You know, or you take the mortgage and you go, well, I've got a house, but I don't, if I default on my payments a few times, then I'm in trouble, right? And I also might not pay it off. And what if I lose my job? If I lose my job, I lose my home. So the supposed, this is the point, right? It's a fiction, right?
mm,
So these securities are fictions. Yeah,
mm,
they're fictions that then create the more insecurities. Right? In
mm.
theory, they satisfy an insecurity, but they don't. They just generate more or different ones.
I'm wondering if it could have been different along the journey here. So do you know of any moments in history or any other times in history when like maybe canceling debt had shifted the social power, had changed something about how we relate to work? Uh,
Yeah.
is there any alternatives to this kind of system that we're kind of stuck in, it seems like?